本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。So, yesterday we have explained, especially emphasized also before, that this practice of meditation on the breath is in all Buddhist traditions kind of a complete course of liberation. We have quoted the verse in the Visuddhimagga. Anapanasati yasa paripuna subhavita yatha buddhena desita so imam lokam obhasati yatha abha muto va chandima. If we have mastered the meditation called mindfulness of in-breath and out-breath, if we have well cultivated, as the Buddha has explained, then what will happen to us? A very good thing will happen. We will be able to illumine this world like a moon. Now it's full moon days, like the moon released from the clouds. So it means in Indian tradition the meaning of liberation is samadhi. To attain really samadhi means to attain liberation. But we have in the traditional Buddhism, we have the distinction between the worldly samadhi, which we are now cultivating with the worldly object, like in-breath and out-breath. What is the worldly object? The worldly object is that object which we can grasp. All objects that we can grasp, they are worldly objects. This is the special emphasis of the Northern tradition. The ultimate reality is ungraspable, therefore it is strictly speaking not an object in a real sense. Sanskrit is a wonderful language. Object in Sanskrit means literally something we can hang on. We can hang the mind on. Alambana. In Chinese, suoyuan has a similar meaning. It is something we can actually get hold of. Yuan is that which we can get hold of. But the ultimate reality is precisely that which we cannot get hold of. Therefore, the emphasis of the Bodhisattva path is the truth is unspeakable, ungraspable. It is to be realized by the saints themselves. And what the saints see, what the liberated persons see, that is a reality. What we see actually, as we have explained, it is the perversion of reality. We have explained the perversion based on our idea of our perception, our view, our differentiation of something permanent in impermanence, something satisfactory, fulfilling in that which is impermanent, and the perception of the self where there is no self at all. And in southern tradition, the perfection, the perception of the pure in the impure. In the northern tradition, actually, it's the same, more or less. The four is actually the perception of something that belongs to the self in that which is empty of the self. So now we have learned that in order to get the samadhi on the breath, then samadhi means the state of balance. And this is to be practiced. According to the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, there are 4 kinds of practitioners. So it's very important to know where our emphasis is. There is a practitioner who has attained or who has the shamatha but has no vipassana. There is practitioner who has vipassana but has no samatha. There is practitioner who has neither samatha nor vipassana. And there is practitioner who has both shamatha and vipassana. This practitioner who has both shamatha and vipassana, he can attain liberation. The practitioner who has neither shamatha nor vipassana, the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra says, he is a practitioner who should practice the balance of the mind. And how he should practice the balance of the mind, we have already learned. When the mind is thinking, he should use the differentiated image. When the mind is excited, and we have explained the excitement of the mind is actually also our need for grasping the objects of the senses, our resistance, our doubt, our remorse and anxiety and so on, our agitated mind. All these are states of agitation. All these are states of non-appeased mind. When the mind is appeased, it is fulfilled. Now, we have learned that as long as the object is a worldly object, the mind, we can appease the mind. In the state of samadhi with worldly object, the mind is perfectly appeased. There are no defilements. But when we get out of this state, as far as we have not mastered the vipassana, the defilements will come again. So, in order to go beyond defilements, we have to master both, the shamatha and vipassana. Then, what is the state of a Buddha? What is the state of an Arahant? Always in samadhi, always in the state of the appeased mind, balanced mind. No more thinking, no more excitement. So we have the arahats here. We used to always walk through the arahats to remind ourselves this state of appeasement. It is a state of freedom. And what is freedom? The freedom is the state of, in the Buddhist tradition, it is a state of not grasping the sensations. It does not mean that the arahat is not happy. He is very happy. You can see outside how happy they are. But they don't grasp for the pleasant sensation. They don't reject the unpleasant sensation. And they, when sensation is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, they never get bored. On the contrary, they remain fully awakened. So this is a state we want to achieve by meditation. Now, we have explained if we want to practice the path of the Bodhisattva, and the path of the Bodhisattva leads to the state of the perfectly awakened Buddha. The perfectly awakened Buddha not only stays in the state of samadhi, he has ridden his mind completely, even of all the habitual energies. So he becomes one with Dharma. So even the Agamas say the one who sees the Buddha sees the Dharma, one who sees the Dharma sees the Buddha, because the Buddha and Dharma, they are the same meaning. They are the state of perfection. They are the state of truth. The Dharma is the truth, the Buddha is the truth. Now, yesterday we have discussed the so-called 5 acquaintances. They are called the parichaya. In our text, they are not exactly translated as acquaintances. They are translated as 5 types of practices, shushi. But actually it means the 5. We have to be familiar with 5 practices in order to illumine the world like the moon released from the clouds. We have already mentioned that in Chinese tradition this practice is called Liu Miao Men. Miao means liberation. The real Miao, the real wonderful is liberation. All other wonderfuls are really not wonderful. Now, in order to master these 6 wonderful methods, we have to, according to our text, we have to have 5 acquaintances or 5 masteries. The first, we should remember, the first is counting. And we will see in our text the counting is very, very complex. And in this tradition, as you will see from this text, even through counting, when you have these 5 acquaintances, you can get a direct knowledge of the object of liberation. For the Shravakas, it is the Nirvana. For the Bodhisattvas, it is the suchness, emphasizing the non-dual nature of the ultimate reality. Especially this tradition of Yogacara in Madhyamika, actually, when you study the philosophy of Northern Buddhism, it is not said that the nirvana of the disciples is different from the nirvana of the bodhisattvas or the Buddha. In this tradition, it is actually said. But anyway, it is just an explanation. We have to realize, to see ourselves. So, in order to really make the best of the meditation on the breath, we have to have these 5 acquaintances or 5 masteries. First, of counting, and while counting, when we connect the counting with shamatha and vipassana, in this tradition it is done, then we can directly realize the path of seeing. In Buddhism, when we practice, same in all Buddhist traditions, we go through the 5 kinds of path. The path of accumulation, path of effort, Ziliang Tao, Jia Xing Tao, path of effort, or then the path of seeing, Jian Tao, the path of meditation, Shu Tao, and the path of accomplishment, Nishta Marga. So this is what is to be learned. No matter whether we practice with the aim of becoming the Buddha disciple or the perfectly enlightened Buddha, we have to go through these 4 types of the path. The peculiarity of the Buddha is, but it is not so important in our context, that he actually goes from the path of seeing directly to the path of perfection, while the disciple goes step by step. So when he has succeeded actually in any of these practices, the 5 acquaintances, he can realize the path of, strictly speaking, according to this text, he can realize when he has connected them with the whole. Yesterday we have learned, in order to get liberation, we have to understand the whole. If we don't understand the whole, we cannot get the liberation. Impossible. There is a saying, sabam anabhijanam, sabam aparijanam, sabam avirajan, sabam apajaha ababo dukkha kayaya. One who has not understood the whole, according to the commentaries, understanding the whole means understanding the special characteristics of all objects. That means of the 5 aggregates. Then aparijana means penetrating the common characteristics of all the worldly objects. Impermanence, unsatisfactory nature, non-self, and emptiness or impurity, emptiness of self. Then when we have this understanding, when we have penetrated these common characteristics, we can detach. When we have detached, we can abandon the grasping, and when we abandon the grasping, we become free, and we have realized. So the path has a logic, path has a sequence, path is clearly explained. Yatha Buddhena Desita, as the Buddha has explained, step by step we can realize. But it is very important, and it is a special emphasis of this text and of the Northern tradition. We should always contemplate that we cannot strictly separate the steps. They are an organic process. We have to understand them as a whole. This is very, very important for getting deeply into the practice. And this part is maybe not enough emphasized in the Southern tradition, but it is very important. We cannot really separate the previous from the next. They are one process. You cannot separate the counting from long breath, being mindful of the long breath or short breath, from following the breath, and finally from placing the mind on the image of the breath. They are one process. Depends what our parami is. We can realize actually this process in one sitting if we are very, very talented. Why not? They are still people very, very talented. Not nowadays, not many, but in the time of Buddha, they were many. So this is also the emphasis of the Northern path, that actually all this process of realization is to be understood in the background of suchness. We are chanting every day the Heart Sutra. All this is to be understood in the framework of suchness. The composite nature of our worldly experience is a suchness. The sequence is also a suchness. The Four Noble Truths are suchness. And in this tradition, the true nature of the mind is a suchness. All our experience is in suchness. So there is only one truth. The four truths is only skillful means for realizing the one truth, the truth of suchness. And in the suchness there is no real time. This belongs to the worldly experience, not to the experience of suchness. And our most important tool for realizing suchness is the mind. In this tradition, the mind itself is a suchness. Actually, in the all Northern tradition, it is emphasized. The mind in the Tiantai tradition becomes non-mind. Non-mind and mind are the same because the reality is beyond comprehension. It is neither existent nor non-existent, nor either existent, nor both existent and non-existent, not neither existent nor non-existent. The reality is ungraspable. And we have explained, like the Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra, Chieshen Meeching is teaching, what is the shamatha and vipassana of the bodhisattva. He understands that reality, in real reality, nothing. All that we define in the real reality is illusionary. It is not true in the absolute sense. Understanding that, the Bodhisattva then gives rise to the vow to attain the highest. Knowing that everything that we established is only illusionarily established, not real. Nothing can be really established. That state is to be understood. That state is to be contemplated. Now we have explained that this Yogacara Bhumi Shastra and this text of ours actually describes, is referring to the path of the disciples, but we always have the supreme realization in the background. This is a peculiarity of this text. So that is why yesterday we have started the practice of shamatha. Is explained not as usual as 8 kinds of samapati, the 8 kinds of dhyana, 8 kinds of attainments, the first, second, third, fourth dhyana in the sphere of subtle forms, first, second, third, fourth dhyana in the sphere of the formless. But it is explained as the 9 stages of the staying in shamatha, called Shinju, we have explained, right? When you have mastered these 9 stages, you can master the jhana very easy, without any difficulty. Even before mastering the 9th stage, you can already enter the jhana, but master it when you have attained the 9th stage. When you have the 9th stage, you can easily master any method, vipassana, chan, dzogchen, mahamudra, whatever. Why? Because when the mind is in balance, it can penetrate the reality as it really is. Depends on what method it is using. If the mind is not in balance, it cannot do that, because it will be perverted. And in Buddhism, the meaning of perversion is the meaning of ignorance. Ignorance means the perversion. And because we have perversion, we indulge in formations, creating the formations. Accumulation of formations is karma. Due to formations, we cling to this differentiating mind. We appropriate the differentiating mind. And what the differentiating mind experiences, we appropriate. In this tradition, it is done by alaya. We have mentioned. Alaya is the root of all our experience, because it appropriates the 5 senses, the 6 senses. It appropriates what the senses experience, and it appropriates what we have experienced in the past through the differentiating mind. So everything we experience actually is the consciousness. And this is very, very useful for meditation. Why? We have explained the condition for meditation is turning the mind inside. from the point of view of yoga, from the point of view of Buddhism, the mind which is turned outside cannot understand the reality as it really is. This is a difference between religion and science. According to religion, the meaning of the universe is in the beings, and the meaning of the beings is in the mind. This is what is to be understood very clearly. So, the important principle of Buddhism, but we can even say of yoga in general, is that only the mind in balance can see things as they really are. So our practice, no matter whether we practice shamatha or we practice vipassana, is to bring the mind into balance. And to bring the mind into balance, the traditional means is to use a meditation object. In this tradition, all meditation objects are mental objects, we have explained. And it is the preliminary for realizations that actually not only all meditation objects are mental objects, but all objects are mental objects. No exception to this rule. This is what is to be realized. And in this tradition, this realization is the realization of suchness, because the mind is a suchness. And mind is, in this tradition, the only reality. Even so, here we are concerned with the practice of the Shravakas. This idea is always in the background. It pops up here and there, even in the Shravaka Bhumi. And also these 9 stages of the shamatha, in a way, they are the, so to say, the necessary practice for the bodhisattvas. The Shravaka does not need necessarily to master perfectly the samadhi, but the bodhisattva has to. Only when he can stay in the state of balance, he can learn to help all sentient beings stay in the samsara, but learn not to suffer, go beyond suffering. This is the aim of the Buddha's teaching, to go beyond the suffering, because the mental suffering is based on our perversion, on our ignorance. It is not the reality. And the perversion from the point of view of Buddha, not from our point of view, is the natural state of the beings. We are beings because we have perversions. The Buddha is no being because he has no perversion. So his mind does not dwell anywhere. Anoka. Because his mind does not dwell anywhere, he becomes the reality. And in this tradition, it is the only reality. There is no other. Whatever other reality we establish, it is illusionary established. This is very important to understand. We want to study the difference between the northern explanation of the past and the southern explanation of the past. This is to be seen clearly. But we always have to keep in mind the explanation is just an explanation. This is very important. We should not rely just on explanation. We should rely on our genuine experience, and it will only come when we have learned the ancient art of keeping mind in balance. This is samadhi. So now, with this background, we can continue to study the 9 abodes of mind in shamatha. They are called chitta sthiti, which literally means abodes of the mind. Shinju. And we have explained the first abode of the mind is placing the mind on the meditation object. When we place the mind on the meditation object, as also explained in Visuddhimagga, we are practicing meditation. That's why the meditation object is in this tradition is called kammathana, yechu. The place of will, effort. We have to make effort to place the mind on a mental object. If we place it outside, we have already explained, it will become a monkey mind. The I cannot be stabilized unless it is supported by the mental consciousness. Only the mental consciousness can stabilize the eye. The ear, same, all 5 senses. Now we have explained the breath. We experience through the bodily consciousness as a wind. Wind means pushing, right? We have explained all that. And we experience it also through mental consciousness. The body cannot feel anything if there is no mental consciousness. It is because of mental consciousness that we can touch. But we have explained the bodily consciousness is rough. The mental consciousness is subtle. When we apply mindfulness, what will happen? Then the experience will become subtle. But when we learn meditation and we don't have much experience in meditation, what will happen? We will want to grasp. We will want to grasp this this sensation of pushing we have somewhere in the body or around the nostrils. We will want to grasp it. So we use a forceful attention. We have explained Li Li Zuo. And because we use a forceful attention on a rather rough object, then we will get frustrated in meditation. The beginners in meditation who don't have much studied, who don't have much practice before, they get very frustrated because they try to catch the breath by force. So we have taught in the beginning, first relax, 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 let the breath be clear. Do maybe some metta meditation. May I be free from suffering. May I be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May they be happy. Gentle smile on the lips, like what we learn in Qigong, like a bodhisattva. Relax completely. Let the facial muscles hang on the skull. Let the other muscles hang on the skeleton, completely relax, then pay attention to the breath. Then it will be much easier. If you just sit down and want to grasp this sensation of pushing or this heat, or while breathing out, and this coolness while breathing in, then you will always get frustrated. Impossible not to get frustrated. The gross mind tries to grasp the gross object. It is frustration. In daily life we don't see it clearly, but in meditation we see it clearly. So actually this frustration is not bad at all. It teaches us that grasping is something wrong. We always want to learn without facing difficulties, but the difficulties are actually good. In meditation things are different than in daily life. When we meditate we face difficulties, and through difficulties we learn. That is meditation. So we learn, we have explained, because we know how important it is to be to have a more subtle mind. Only the subtle mind can experience more subtle objects, and the subtle mind and subtle objects is much superior happiness than the happiness we experience through the five senses. We have to believe in it. So we persist in meditation, so we can go to the second stage. Our mind has continuity on the meditation object. Then we get some confidence, but still this habit of grasping will be very strong. Only in the third stage, we have explained, we see that this the only way is to use the force of mindfulness, not the force of not the brute force of grasping the object. When the mindfulness is there, we have explained, everything becomes more smooth. Why? Because the nature of mindfulness is the stable mind. Only the stable mind can remember what it is doing at the moment. If the mind is not stable, when other object comes, it will run to the other object, and that is precisely the monkey mind. So the mindfulness actually literally means memory. Memory at present. But the memory at present is connected with the memory in the past. When we can remember well in the present, we can also much better recollect the past objects that we have experienced. If the mind is monkey mind, then also it has a great difficulty in recollecting the past object. So the mindfulness means the recollecting. When we recollect the object of our attention, our perception, our sensation becomes stable. Perception and sensation are we have explained, are the formations of the mind. When they are stable, the mind is stable. And the mind is stable, we experience other objects, but the mind does not go to them. The mind stays with the object of attention. This is a secret of mindfulness. If we are not mindful, the other objects affect our attention to the present object. So it will run away from the object that we pay attention to. So we don't experience anything clearly. If we don't have mindfulness, we also cannot experience the breath clearly, because the mind will run when the sensation in the knee is there, it will run to the knee. When the sensation in the shoulder, it will run to the shoulder. If the sound outside, it will run to the sound outside. And there will be no continuity of attention on the breath. The continuity of attention on the breath only happens in the second stage. And in that stage we start realizing that we cannot hold the object by force. We can only hold it by mindfulness. And when we realize it, then whenever the mind goes away from the in-breath and out-breath, due to mindfulness, we will immediately, as soon as it happens, we will immediately, not by force but by mindfulness, bring it back So at this stage, really the mindful power of mindfulness start to crystallize. When the power of mindfulness starts to crystallize, the mind becomes stable. And we find more confidence in meditation, more fulfillment in meditation, but it is still a beginning. Now, in Buddhism, it is very important. We have quoted before the verses from the Dhammapada also. We practice meditation for the sake of wisdom. And it is a wisdom which will finally purify us. But the wisdom cannot be powerful, awareness cannot be powerful without concentration. Awareness will be weak without concentration. So the aim of learning meditation is to balance the concentration with wisdom. When we can balance the concentration with wisdom, the samadhi becomes a natural. When the samadhi becomes natural, the mind becomes naturally balanced, and it can face all kinds of turbulences with detachment. Otherwise, the turbulences will shake us. If the mind is in balance, the turbulences will not shake us. And our world, our experience is full of turbulences, everywhere conflicts, everywhere grasping, everywhere resistance, contradictions. The world is full of contradictions. How to solve them? By a balanced mind. So this science of the balanced mind is a real blessing. So when we are in the third stage, this third stage is called avastapayati. Avastapayati means to put the mind down on the object. That means no matter what feeling we have, no matter what other perceptions we have, no matter what different impressions come to the mind, we do not lose completely the meditation object. When we lose it, we immediately notice it and bring the mind back to it. The commentaries called it patched up attention. So in the first two stages, in this system, Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, these first four stages, they are defined by the forceful attention. From the third stage, because we start learning the power of mindfulness, there is no more forceful attention. From the third stage until the seventh stage, it is called Satchidra Avahana. The first one is Bala Avahana, the Lili Dzoi, by force. Now the attention has gaps. Chidra means gap. Yotian Dzoi. Tian means gap. It has a gap in what? It has gaps in the clarity about the object. Because it has not yet overcome this, what we have explained before, this subtle, as we go higher in shamatha, these tendencies to mind to sink and to rise or to be excited become more and more subtle. At this stage, still they're rather gross. But when we go higher, fifth stage, sixth stage, seventh stage, they become more and more subtle. So subtle that even when this tendency to sinking or rising of the mind appears, we immediately notice it even before it has effect on our mind. So subtle the mind can become. But it is still a gap in clarity. So Satchidra Avahana. Avahana means carrying the mind to the object. In order to meditate, we have to learn to carry the mind to the object with balance. In the Pali tradition, there is a very wonderful word which is called abhujita, from the Sanskrit root bhuj, which means bend, the bending the mind to the object. When we can bend the mind to the object with perfect balance, the mind is in peace. No more thinking, no more excitement, a perfect peace. But as long as a worldly object is there, this peace may be temporary. In order to let the mind to be in this state of peace for good, we have to learn the wisdom, awareness, vipassana. All these, they are actually synonyms. Awareness, wisdom, vipassana. They are different aspects of the same thing, which is wisdom. So now we are at the third stage, and we have the power of mindfulness. It starts to crystallize. Therefore, we have abandoned the forceful attention to the object, and we control our meditation by power of mindfulness, so that whenever we lose the object of meditation, we immediately bring the mind back to it, not by force, but by mindfulness. Please experiment, see very clearly. When the power of mindfulness has actually ripened, so that the awareness can clearly come to expression, we don't lose anymore in the fourth stage, we don't lose anymore the object of meditation. So the awareness can purify the mind. If we still losing the object of our attention, then the awareness cannot do the job. So this is to be understood. Then this fourth stage of shamatha is called upastapayati. Upa means near, Jinju. That means even so the mind is sinking, has tendency to sink, has tendency to excitement, we never leave the object of meditation. This is the stage where the awareness comes in and can purify the mind. So let us finish here. We will continue later. And now we have to go to the questions. They are accumulating here. You mentioned our focus should be under the nose as a place, not as a point. Yes, actually many teachers, including my teacher, they always speak of placing the attention to a point, either the point on the top of the nose or the point on the on the upper lip, where you can feel the touch of the breath. So I see many meditators, they start so this is confusion naturally. So we should not explain like this. Even so the great master sometimes explain like that. The point, actually we should say the place rather than point. Because now we understood the trouble of forceful attention. We should understand it not only in meditation, but we should understand it in daily life. This forceful attention gives us a hell of the trouble. The more we meditate, the more we become sensitive and become aware of it, how troublesome this forceful attention is. So if we have really advanced in meditation, we are practically free from forceful attention. Then we can say the meditation has really benefited us. The experienced meditator never goes actually to this first and second stage because he's free from the forceful attention. Why? Because his mindfulness has become a natural force. Does this mean it is an area under our noses, not a touching point on the skin between noses and mouth we should concentrate on? Wherever you have the touch, according to Buddhist philosophy, and it is very important to understand, this is the most important emphasis in Buddhist philosophy. All that we experience, we can only experience by touch. When we understand this, then all Buddhist philosophy becomes clear. All that we can experience, all that we can realize is by touch. And for the touch, we have only the six senses, we have no other. So we are dependent on the six senses for the touch. Now, if we meditate on the breath, we are touching the breath. That's how we experience the breath. How do we know there is breath? There is touch, there is sensation, and there is differentiation. There is touch, sensation, and differentiation by the bodily consciousness, and there is touch, sensation, and differentiation by the mental consciousness. When the concentration becomes stronger, the touch of the bodily consciousness goes into the background, and the touch of the mental consciousness goes to the foreground. So this touch becomes more subtle. The more and more subtle, the more we go into the mental consciousness. Then we notice there is a heat when we breathe out, the coolness when we breathe in. We may notice still that there is some vibration there, but it will not influence at all our meditation, because we are staying with the mental image of the breath. And this mental image of the breath becomes more and more stable. When it becomes more stable, it is illumined, because the mind illumines the object. So that when the place of touch is illumined, we know our concentration is improving. And naturally then the bodily consciousness is in the background, and we will pay less and less attention to it. This is how to deal with the pain also. When you go into mental consciousness, you know there is a pain, but you will not be concerned with it. Or you will be less concerned with it. Otherwise, if you're concerned with the bodily consciousness, pain here, then here, then here, that is monkey mind. Uncomfortable here, then here, then here, and where is the breath? So we have to learn to avoid the forceful attention, and that we can only do when we relax and use mindfulness to recollect the breath. Then our sensation on the breath, then perception of the breath will stabilize. Then automatically the mind will stabilize, because these mental formations, they are the main content of the mind. According to them, we distinguish different kinds of the mind. So, wherever, when you start learning meditation on the breath, wherever you feel the breath, the touch of the breath, you can stay there. It's okay. When the mind gets used to this, then it will learn focusing. When it does learn focusing, then you can go further. Pay attention to the subtle breath, not only the gross breath. Then you can see the echo, when after the in-breath there is still the tendency of the prana going down, out-breath prana going up. Then you will see, when you pay attention to this period, then there is in the period between the in-breath and the out-breath and the in-breath, actually the body is still on the move, still expanding, shrinking, expanding, shrinking. So actually the whole body is breathing through the pores of the skin, as explained here. If you have a very firm perception of the touching place around the nostrils, and you apply it to the whole body, then you will see even the whole body. Naturally, in the in-between period, the attention spreads to the whole body, because there is no movement here. And if you have a good concentration, then the whole body will become kind of brightened. Then it becomes much easier to study all these energies that we are, all these vital energies circulating in the body, starting with Lao Kung, what we do, Yung Chien, then connect the different, starting maybe with the lung meridian, connect here with here, then you will see the pushing energy, and so you learn so much to learn. The difference between the southern tradition and northern tradition is that this northern tradition studies this subtle breath, and it is part of yoga also, and it is in a way especially useful for the bodhisattva path. You can master the energies, this heat practice and so on, all connected with the breath, the subtle breath. The Southern Buddhism is not concerned with that, because it is concerned, the Buddha himself says, it is concerned, strictly speaking, only with that which is necessary to attain nirvana. It seems as if I can still experience inhalation and exhalation while my mind is starting to have thoughts. Well, it is quite natural. This is how it should be. Now we have discussed all this. No matter what happens, you should not lose the meditation object. If you can do it, you can advance. If you can't do it, very difficult to advance. Because the monkey mind will tame you, you will not tame the monkey mind. It seems simultaneous, the thoughts and the awareness of breathing. Is this a weak awareness of breath that will strengthen as the mind quiet, as the mind or thoughts? Well, when you have got into the deeper states of concentration, the thoughts will naturally cease. And when the thoughts have ceased, there come these insights. Some very important insights may come. Actually, this tradition connected with Yogacara, Bhumi Shastra, is all based on the study of samadhi. That's why it is called Yogacara. What is yoga? The shamatha and vipassana. What is achara? The conduct. The conduct of the yogi is samadhi. Samadhi of shamatha and vipassana. By studying this samadhi, these yogis, starting with Maitreya, if we believe it is our future Buddha, they have come to understand the process of liberation by understanding the process of shamatha and vipassana. And shamatha and vipassana happens on the base of the mental consciousness. Mental consciousness then, so to say, completely appeases the five senses. So the impact of the five senses cannot disturb the mind. So this, even no matter whether we believe in that mind, like the Xuanzang does, that the mind is real, or this alaya is just a concept, it doesn't really much matter, but it is the best method for learning meditation, to bring all experience to the mind. Even if we believe in Madhyamika philosophy, that nothing, everything is emptiness, it does not change, the mind is a place where we can realize it. What is the rationale for the following restrictions to Qigong? Avoid time between 11 and 1. It is because in this time the fire is predominant. It is a time of the heart. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. is a time of the heart. And these energies can be very powerful. Actually, the more you study Qigong, you will see these energies, they can be very, very powerful. If you also do the Qigong late in the evening, then you won't be able to sleep. So the best time, of course, is in the morning. In China, you will see many people in the parks practicing Tai Chi Chuan, Qi Kung. This is the very common practice. Avoid water contact within 30 minutes. Actually, I did not write it. It is my student from Taiwan, Jiesen Fashe, some know her, who has written it. I have only kind of revised the German version. So she is actually familiar with Chinese medicine. Myself, I am just touching here and there, but the more I touch, the more fascinating I find it. But I don't know much about Chinese medicine. It must be my idea is we don't only absorb water through the mouth, we also absorb water through the skin. Like we also breathe through the skin, we also absorb water through the skin. The great yogis, if we believe the Mahabharata, very wonderful book, could stay under the water for days, breathing, absorbing oxygen through the water, like Duryodhana, all these heroes of the Indian literature, very fascinating. It's worthwhile reading. It has influenced even the Chinese literature, like the monkey. Monkey novel is the just a changed version of the Ramayana, Hanuman. And also you will find some reflections of the Mahabharata in Chinese literature itself, but that is a different topic. We don't talk about it now. So it has to do with Chinese medicine. Anyway, we also, when we bathe, we absorb the water through the skin. Then it may affect the practice also. So now the time is over, so let us leave the other questions for the evening. That much for now. And we will do the transference of merit in the evening. Now we can do just the most simple version in Chinese. 愿自功德普及一切，我等一众生皆空成佛道。阿弥陀佛。